floor area. And then in 1944 in Greater London Plan, they have defined like it should have at least 40 square meter per person area. And WHO says that should be minimum 9 square meter per person. So Master Plan of Delhi, it envisages to achieve 40 square meter per person urban green spaces. So these are the area based measures. So now these area based measures are very good. Like you can assess the quantity of green spaces available in any aerial unit, but it has some drawbacks. Drawbacks in the sense like if you have a big park in the corner of your urban area, so your green spaces are sufficient, but their distribution is poor. So let us see about these aspects in coming slides. So first thing is your uh, how we use remote sensing. So if you look at this spectral reflectance curve, so this is the curve of your vegetation. It is going like gives very high reflection, like your green vegetation is very high reflectance in your near infrared region. Dry vegetation has lower reflectance. Soil has further lower reflectance. So most of the urban material are soil and vegetation is giving very high reflectance in this region. So based on this property, we can easily segregate green and soil and dry vegetation in different classes using our automatic classification tools. So here there is one method which we have used, NDVI thresholding. NDVI is nothing but index of near infrared band minus red band, values of red band divided by near infrared band plus red band. So it is a reflectance a specific wavelength, and then we can get an image where NDVI has value from -1 to +1. And generally it is considered that minus values are associated with your built up or non-vegetation, and positive values are related with associated with your vegetation pixels. So based on this thresholding, we can divide the urban area into two classes like non-vegetated area and vegetated area. So this is known as NDVI thresholding, and we can easily segregate in urban area your vegetation and non-vegetation areas. Now, after once we do this, we can do a lot of analysis. Like once we have in GIS, because we can study overall city level, we can study, okay, this much is the non-vegetated area, this much is the vegetated area. But we can also study different sectors, different wards, different mohalla, different colonies, whatever the aerial unit you have, like you can create a shapefile or you have the data with you, you can analyze your urban area with respect to that. So here in Chandigarh, we have analyzed the vegetation area by sectors, and here we have found very interesting finding. We have found that there is first zone is your administrative zone. It is very high amount of like your Capital Hall Hill Complex, Punjab University, and other areas, and it has very high amount of urban green spaces like available vegetation spaces are there. This is early phase development of Chandigarh, where all the well maintained like interconnected green spaces were created, and this is the new development of Chandigarh. So here you can see that even except one or two sectors, most of the sectors has good amount of urban green spaces, more than 30%, and very few has near to 30%. But if you look at the new development, where there is some urban villages are there, like in this 45 sector, there was a big urban village, and another sector also has some development. So we can see there is a huge difference in your availability of green spaces in these areas. So this is one of the method which can be utilized to study your urban green spaces. Now, if you look at Delhi also, Delhi we have seen so that this is in 2005 and this is in 2013, like how urban area has grown and how per capita urban green spaces has come down. Now here you can see that when we look at all this area, like urban green spaces seems to be very high amount in this both the cases, but the distribution is very poor. Like you can see there are very uh, dense patches available or built up, and green spaces just at the one side, so it is very skewed distribution of your urban green spaces. So to study that, we need to study that proximity to green spaces that we'll see later on. First, I want to talk about tree cover and canopy density. See, like there are people say that higher level of tree density, like there are studies available, higher level of tree density are associated with self-reported stress reduction. See, urban park, like when we talk about lawns, when we talk about trees, it has been found that trees has more impact on carbon dioxide sequestration than your park area, like a small, like lawn area. So it has more impact on heat and air pollution mitigation. So with more lawn cover, sometimes with like because more lawn cover and sometimes very well maintained green park or manicured green park, green urban green spaces, they need lot of maintenance. They use lot of fertilizer. So sometimes the balance can actually shift to emitting carbon dioxide rather than sequestering the carbon dioxide. So you can see that highly fertilized green covers, grass covers, they may become the carbon source. So they may become, rather than carbon sink, they become the carbon source. So naturally grown trees and vegetation, they have more impact on your carbon sequestration rather than your well manicured gardens. So how we can study this aspect? Like here in this image, we have taken just a small image where we have carried out the supervised classification, and we divided the image into different classes like dense vegetation, grass, low vegetation, open spaces, and built up. So based on this classification, so this is one of the method where you can do the supervised classification. Another method could be object-based image classification using e-cognition, and there are other softwares also where you can find the object-based image classification, where shape of the green space is also considered as one of the parameter. So based on this, there are classes we could identify: trees, high urban vegetation, forest, open space, sport complex, park, garden, roadside green, a vacant area, water. So we could identify more number of green classes. Now, based on this, we can study like how this different type of green are distributed across your urban area. So this is possible now using your GIS and remote sensing you have used for getting information, and GIS you can use it for analysis. Now, if we come to the next point, that is proximity to green. See, I have told you like distribution of green is also important. Like sometimes we are, it can be that with respect to percentage of green, it may be a sufficient area, but sometimes if it is not well distributed, it will not provide you the proper benefits. Like there are parks are generally cooler than surroundings, and they extend almost 100-meter to 180-meter downwind into the neighborhood. I'll show you some examples. And there are studies which have found that street trees, they substantially reduce air temperature. So you can, if you have the distributed urban green, then you can regulate your urban microclimate more effectively. Like in this study, they have shown that almost at around 150 to 80 meter, after that, your cooling effect is stabilized. So there you can see like increases, surrounding temperature increase with distance, and around 150 to 80 meter, it is cooling magnitude was lower. So this is the maximum cooling distance. How we have studied it using your remote sensing, like thermal remote sensing data we have taken. This is the land surface temperature image, and we have created line profiles. So what we have seen that pervious surface fraction means urban green spaces, they have like as they increase, your temperature decreases. Another thing what we have found that when we go away from the urban park or green area, we there is a increase in temperature, but generally after 150 to 180 meter, that impact is stabilized. In Chandigarh, what we have found that in earlier development, because it has well distributed urban green spaces at regular interval, like your temperature increases, it reaches to a point, then again decreases because there is another park. But in new development, since that much of well distributed green spaces are not there, so we can see that there is an increase in temperature, and there is that peak is not going down even after this much of distance. So this you can see the difference in development. Like Chandigarh is such a good case study. Like if you look it into other cities, you may find different kind of maybe patterns, but you will find definitely there is a decrease in temperature when you are near to the park area, and increase in temperature when you are going away from the park area, and that is stabilizes after a distance. And then it maybe further increase if the density of built up area increases. So you have to look into all these parameters or all these patterns when you are studying in urban green spaces. Now, how we can also study, like in this study, what we have done, we have taken urban green space categories. Like I have told you, like we have created dense vegetation, grass vegetation, built up, and no vegetation green spaces. And we have given different kind of, we have created 20-meter buffer around vegetation. And we have given different quality classes to those vegetation. What we have assumed that whatever the dense vegetation, not even assumed, based on our literature, where they say that high dense vegetation and tree vegetation offers more benefits, so we have given that as a high quality green. So we have assessed the quality of green based on proximity to type of green in each cell. So there are that this buffer was analyzed with respect to the percentage in each green cell, and that had been analyzed. So this is a proximity to green where Chandigarh created the similar way. Like we have given different weightage to the different buffer distances, and we have found in Chandigarh you will find, because of its very well distributed green spaces development, your proximity to green is very good in Chandigarh. Very few patches you will find, and that is also like Sukna Lake area. So in most of the area you will find a very good um, proximity to green in higher categories. So that is we studied using remote sensing and GIS together for Chandigarh area. For Delhi, the situation is a little bit different, like where you can see that there are patches where we have very good quality, but proximity is very good, but there are very there is a patches also where there is very low proximity to green in this area. So here also you can see that there is in different part of the Delhi, like West Delhi, South Delhi, you can see that there is a high amount mean proximity to green is not so good, and standard deviation is also varying a lot. Now, based on your this availability of data sets, and based on of your multi criteria, like multi-parameter evaluation can also be done for urban green spaces. Like you can see, like here in this diagram, in this study, we have considered amount of green and quality of green as characteristic of urban vegetation, and proximity to green, height of structure, and density of built up as characteristic of urban built up. Why height of structure is considered? Because height and density together is indirectly in representing the amount of population living in that area. So it will give you like if the more number of people are living, definitely they need more amount of green spaces for their social and ecological use. So based on this one, this neighborhood green index was created, Here, similar index was used for Chandigarh also, and all the sectors has been studied, like what is the weighted urban green space index, where we can see again the similar pattern is visible. Like in the initial sectors, it is very good, and it's still good in this area, but it is little bit going towards the lower side in the new development area. So now I'm coming to the major aspect which Jayesh has also told, that accessibility to green, that is very much important, and he has found that this accessibility, it is not only with green infrastructure. You can apply it to your any social and civic infrastructure. So but let me talk to with respect to specific to the green. So we have found in our studies and survey that accessibility to green is a precondition for use. Like if it you don't have properly accessible green spaces, that's why distribution of green spaces is very important. If you don't have accessible green spaces, then your population doesn't go to the green spaces. We have found, like there is a study commissioned by Natural England. They have found that people living in neighborhoods more than a mile from a park had a 27% greater chance of being overweight or obese because they don't go to the park frequently. In Delhi, we have carried out one survey, and we have asked people about how much they are visiting the park, how they go to the park. And what we have found, that 89 more than 89% of the daily user, they go by walking. They go by walking. Say this, you can see. And generally people access park which are available within 0 to 5 or 5 to 10 minutes. So if they are going daily, the park should be within 5 to 10 minutes walking distance. Now this 5 to 10 minutes is maximum by 10 to 15 minutes, but preferably it should be 5 to 10 minutes, because this 5 to 10 minutes is walking time. Don't consider it as a distance. It is not a distance, it's a walking time. People define the distance in terms of walking time. When we ask people how far is your houses in terms of distance, so they were not able to give answer very clearly to whether it is 500-meter or 600-meter or 700-meter. But when we ask how much time do you take to reach the park and how much, they were very clear. Okay, 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 10 minutes. So they define the accessibility. People define the accessibility in terms of the time they take to visit the park. It is very important to understand that aspect. And people generally want to go to park walking rather than using motorized vehicles, because they feel at least they are adding that much walking to their, and they feel happy. Like when they are going to park by walking, they feel happy. And that is what makes accessibility a very interesting part. Like, and it is also a function of different hierarchical levels of grief. We have to understand this aspect as planners, that there is a child, he want to play in a safe and healthy environment, so space should be within walking distance. Now walking distance for a child is limited, it is not adult walking distance. So you have to understand that walking distance for a child is limited, so you need a play space at doorstep. You need a very nearby space where the child can see. If the child, an adult has to accompany the child to go to park every day, very few child will get that advantage, that they have some grandparents or some person in the house where they can go to park with that adult, and their frequency will reduce. But if the child himself can go to the park without anyone's assistance, then he will be going it daily, maybe 10 times in a day. So that play space should be a doorstep for local everyday life, and it should be safe. Similarly, a family would like to spend the weekend or part of weekend with some recreational activity, that should be within driving distance of maximum 1 hour. So you need a big park also. You need a big park where a family can go, a group of families can go and they can have some different activities, but you need space at doorstep also. So all level in hierarchy, they are complementary to each other. They are not supplementary. Sometimes what we do, we create a map of urban green spaces and we then calculate the percentage. Okay, this much green space is available, but this much green space is available at what level? That is also very, very important, because every green space has a different function associated to it. A tot lot generally is a park where people go for, like where the child can play. Housing area park and tot lot are the lowest category park. They can, where the child can go to play. So they should be designed in such a way that child can access the park without much assistance. Now, neighborhood park and community park are those parks where the people go for regular use. Now, above that, you will get the district park, sub-district parks, sub-city park, and city park. They are for larger number of population to access for maybe weekend recreation, or maybe for your, maybe they have more of your ecological importance, but these level of parks has more of your social importance. So you have to understand, and all these parks are complementary to each other. Now I'll come to the accessibility part. See, for studying accessibility, there are, we have used two methods. One is buffer analysis and one is network analysis. Now, when we understand that every park has a different, is catering to a different user group. So based on this concept, we have defined, and based on, like we have taken concept from N1 Hergel, where we have defined different buffer distances to the different park. Like tot lots, we have defined as 50 meter, housing area parks as 150 meter, neighborhood park is 400 meter, and community park is 800 meter. Now, this we have, I have also told you, I had also discussed that people don't define distances in terms of meters. They define distances in terms of how much time they are taking to reach that space. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes. So what we have considered, what we have done, we have taken one walking speed, that is average walking speed, that is given in literature. So based on that, this distances we have converted into time. So tot lots, we have found that 50 meter means 1 minute time, housing area park is 5 minute, neighborhood park is 10 minute, community park is 15 minute. So now these all impedances were taken from user survey that we have carried out in Delhi. Now, okay, sorry. So when we are going for network analysis, see, network analysis gives you a lot more flexibility. Like you can, there is a, you can have the, you have nodes, you have networks, you have impedances. So that those impedances you can build in the network data as per your requirement, or as per your understanding of your area. Like in our set area, we have 4 different types of road. See, in many of studies in literature, they don't give access to highways and major roads. But in our study area, while we were doing survey, we have seen that people are not of, like people are accessing highways and major roads are also equally. So we have given the equal accessibility to all 4 roads, but we have taken the different walk times. Like local and minor roads, what we have found that walking speed is less. In highway and major road, the walking speed is little bit more because of availability of pedestrian footpaths. In local and minor roads, there was no footpath, so their speed was less. But in highways and major roads, the speed was more. So what we have taken the speed as 1.75 meter per second, and that we have in the network data, we have defined it as a length multiplied by 60 divided by 2700. And for highway and major road, we have taken pedestrian speed as 1 meter per second. So walk time comes length multiplied by 60 divided by 3600. So this has been, impedance has been defined for the roads. Now impedance has been defined for each park also, like walk time for each park. So each park, I have already shown you in the previous slide that we have defined in terms of time, 1 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute. Now one more we have defined, we have given that pedestrian can walk from facilities to destination and reverse, both way they can walk. See, in your problem, suppose you are doing some civic infrastructure analysis. If it is a one way in your area, one way, then you can restrict the movement in network analysis. You can define it road as a one way, or you can define the road as two way. So that flexibility is there in network analysis. Now we have defined some global turns and attributes also. Like for left turn, we defined that time taken is almost 10 seconds. That we have taken from literature. For right turn, it is 40 seconds because it takes more time to take the right turn. If the person is going straight, it will take 20 seconds. All the public parks were taken as facilities, and there is a service area analysis was done, and service polygons were generated away from the facility, and all the resulted polygons were trimmed about 20 meters along the road. Otherwise the polygon will go over your built up area. So we have trimmed the polygon to along the road nearly about 20 meters. So this is all we had built for network analysis. But here I would like to mention one more example. Like in Ahmedabad, they have done one study for your bus routing. So what they have done, they have moved in the bus, they went from one place to another place, and they have noted the time taken from one stop to another stop. All these database they had built into their network analysis. And this exercise was done by Space Application Center Ahmedabad, that is also one unit of ISRO. They have almost large number of buses, 15-20 buses they have for picking up the people, like the employees from different parts of Ahmedabad. So these buses were plying on different routes, and they have built the network analysis with very much of detailed values, like how much time it is taking for left turn, how much time it is taking for right turn, how much time it is taking from one junction to another junction. So that way detailed they have built it into it, and they have later on they have found that they can reduce almost 3 to 4 buses, and that is a lot of saving on your manpower, your fuel cost, especially fuel cost. It is lot of saving. So in this study also, like suppose there were like when we went into the study area, we have found that there were some local markets in between. So their local markets we were taking more time to cross. So if we model those local markets also in our network data set, so we can even include that as a your for network analysis. So you can then try to mimic the real situations on the ground in network analysis data, and then we can try to find out like how much time it is taking from going from one park to, like how much is the service area of the park. So we have found for this, what we have done, we have taken the study area, we created urban LULC map, urban LULC, very detailed urban LULC map, where we have mapped all the green, but with respect to their usage also, like institutional green, commercial green, roadside green, or railway green. And for public use, we have considered only those, like we have taken out all urban green spaces here. And for public use, we have considered only those spaces which are accessible to public. Like institutional green is accessible to only limited number of people, or commercial green is also is accessible to limited number of people. So we have taken only those areas which are accessible to green. So they are public green spaces. So when we studied the distribution of urban green spaces, we have found the 2 wards as very poor distribution of urban green spaces, whereas public green and total green space. But there are 2 wards, they have very good distribution of your total green space, but there are more of institutional green were more. That's why your public green spaces are very less. So basically the accessible green spaces were very less in even in these 2 wards. So here we can see that there are two wards are there that they are showing only few of the tot lots, but not very big park. These parks are showing a good amount of tot lot, housing area park and neighborhood park and community park also. So when then we did accessibility analysis based on buffer analysis. Buffer analysis is simple. For tot lot we have used 50-meter buffer, and for neighborhood we have used a 400-meter buffer, and for other categories also, as I mentioned in my previous slide. And similarly, for network analysis, we have modeled as we have defined the criteria, and we got the tot lot service area for tot lot, neighborhood, and then your housing area park and community park. So all this we have got the service area. And when we compared the network analysis and buffer analysis, it shows that buffer analysis has shown that almost 91% of the area cumulatively for all urban green spaces, they are accessible to, like it is servicing almost 91% of area. But when we studied through network analysis, we have found only 36% area is accessible to, or it is serviced by the urban green spaces in the study area. Now, if when we studied that category-wise service area, so we have found that in some tot lots has very poor serviceability, even housing area park also. In case of neighborhood and community park, it is still better. So this is we have found that even so, this poor accessibility of uses at all hierarchical levels, especially at lower level of hierarchy, which mainly caters to young children. So we, at the time of designing, we need to definitely look into this. I'll also share one example, like when we went to one apartment area while doing the survey, there was one small park, and it was not used. When we discussed with the people who were there, and they said that children don't come, they don't come to uh, in this park. Then we realized actually that park was designed in the middle of a 3-4 large blocks, like very high rise blocks. So it was giving a feeling of like you are standing in a well. So that kind of feeling for a child is very dominating feeling. So they won't access that park, they won't feel comfortable playing in that park. So when we are designing the park for children, we need to definitely, first aspect, we need to take care like what is the accessibility for them, like how safely they can access the park without assistance, and they should feel a little free feeling in that park rather than unclosed kind of spaces should not be designed as park. So this is what all about your accessibility to green. And now I come to the one more aspect which is also I feel is very important for urban green spaces, that is functional assessment. Functional assessment is like whether the park is maintained, whether park is usable. See, first I have told you accessibility is precondition. If it is not nearby your area, you generally don't tend to visit the park. But if the park is not properly maintained, you don't feel a sense of security in the park, you won't like to go in the park frequently. So that is also one of the very important aspect of urban green spaces. And there basically there are different aspects, like maintenance is one very important aspect. Security is another important aspect which affects basically uh, going of the children and females to the park. Like they, if they feel secure, then they will go. So that is very important aspect. Then another is user activities, like whether you have different activities or they differ at different levels. Like every level on the hierarchy has different function, and they're complementary to each other. And quality of experience is also one important aspect. Like this has been studied and found by many researchers that natural green area, naturally grown green area, they give better user experience rather than the manicured green areas. Like when you go to a green area which has trees, more number of trees, you will find much better experience. That is what reported in literature. So here also remote sensing, GIS and your internet technology combined together can give you a tool for functional assessment of urban green spaces also. Like we have created one web-based map, and which can be when you go to the park, you can click on the park, you can select the park, and then you can give your accessibility, your scores, like you can give the values. Like we have created one, I have not shown all the snapshots of that questionnaire. We have created one is questionnaire, and based on that questionnaire the person has to just tick on those questionnaire, like how much time you are taking to reach the park. He has to tick the option, how much, how whether do you feel secure, yes or no. So all this we have prepared one questionnaire, and we have given score to each and every question. So that question, this work I have done in with Dr. Shama Pundambekar from SPA Bhopal in collaboration with her. So we have found that this is like, then we have given scores to each and every question, and that is used for creating the final score. So that way you can give the score. So now this kind of web-based or mobile app can be utilized for functional assessment using crowdsourcing. Like if you provide this kind of app to your users in an urban area, users can itself assess the park. So that park will get one marking, some scoring. So then if another user gives some score, then third user, then it will keep on doing the averaging of those scores. So it can be utilized for functional assessment of green spaces in urban area using your crowdsourcing method. So based on user feedback. So this we had created as a pilot app, and definitely this can be utilized by any of the authority, or maybe further developing into some operational use. So now I'll come to the next part, where also I feel that is very much important to give attention. Like we have conflicting demands. Conflicting demands means there are majorly marginal population are living in vulnerable flood prone land along river and drainage channels. It creates surface water pollution. Like you can see, this is an image of Dehradun. Here you can see that river has a very good channel here, but you can see the densification of population along the river channel in this image in 2017. So this creates surface water pollution. These areas become a solid waste dump ground along the water channels. So here it is just a concept and a thought which can be explored further for different studies. Like if we have the blue-green corridor, so it may help you to have that flood, like it can help to mitigate the flood. You can have the social and ecological benefits. Even these kind of blue-green corridor can be utilized for a recreation. Plus they can provide you your pedestrianized movement. If it is very well interconnected green spaces, then you have, and that can be created because most of the time your drainage crisscross the urban areas. So you can create interconnected green spaces along the blue corridor, and they can be pedestrian movement. There can be cycle movement like bicycle corridors, and though these corridors can help in reducing even your transportation load also. See, in most of the cities, people have stopped using cycles, and it's not because they don't want to use, because they don't feel safe when they go on the road. Like when they are walking on the road, or when they are bicycling on the road, they don't feel safe because of the high motorized vehicle movement. So if we segregate these two areas like pedestrian movement and bicycle movement and motorized movement, at least up to maybe 60-70%, then it may increase the use of bicycles in urban area, and that can help in our urban environment also. So with this thought, I'll just come to this Amrit, which that Amrit says that development of green space and parks with special provision for child-friendly components. This Amrit document has defines this in Amrit, and they have made some goals like action plan to progressively increase green cover in cities to 15% in 5 years, develop at least one children park every year in number of cities, and system for maintenance of park, playground, and recreational areas, public private partnership model. So here I have already shown you some of the um, like some of the uses of your remote sensing GIS and internet technology, which can be put to use for achieving these goals. So, and or monitoring, even not even achieving and monitoring these goals. So this can be done, and with that, I'll just summarize that they are very essential for physical and social environment. Tree cover, canopy density, proximity to green, and accessibility to green, they are equally important. Quantity of green is important, but they are also equally important. So we need to develop some indices for urban green spaces, as those indices which can be utilized by our planner or development authorities to evaluate our urban green spaces, to uh, score them or to categorize them. And we have to have development of blue green corridor to address conflicting demands and pollution. And remote sensing and GIS technology can play a major role in quantitative and qualitative evaluation of GIS. With that, thank you very much for your patience listening and being with me, and I'm open to questions.
Yes, just a minute.
Hello, Samaji. How are you?
Fine, sir. How are you, sir? Good morning, sir.
Fine. Very long time, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So it was very nice to listen to your presentation. I was just joined little late.
Yes, sir. This is what I have done in last few years
Yeah.
regarding urban green spaces. Uh, Sir,
I
with
think
your
all
blessing.
my students will be really happy to listen to your research and developmental activities and how you are taking into consideration of the green space and open space. And so it is a very important topic today. We are all talking about how to make creating livable cities and neighborhoods.
Yes, sir.
So I think our students may be having something to discuss with you. I will just tell all my students, please give your feedback, and then you can take part in this presentation and then get benefit of the excellent presentation today here. Thank you, Samaji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. आप मेरे गुरु हैं, sir. You are my guru. You are my teacher. People, you may not be knowing, sir was my MTech guide, MTech thesis guide, and I did MTech in his guidance. So
That was a beautiful study done for the waterfront development,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ajmer. I remember. Yeah. So, Jay, sir, well done. And now you can keep it open for students to discuss it. Okay.
Yes. So students, whoever is having questions, they can ask. Ahan, I'm not able to see all.
Sir, I congratulate you and your students also for getting that Notch Plan award that I came to know from Jayesh.
Yes, yes, it is done just very recent work. They all come back today only. Maybe they
Yeah,
are
that
in
was
office.
that's what I came to know, and it is really a good achievement on the part of like your college. Uh,
See all the effort of the students and teachers, because
yes.
thanks.
Ma'am, I think till others are thinking about their question. Navya, Dasri, Gudapati, please be ready with your questions. Okay. Ma'am, how can we mainstream this green spaces? Because these are very important social infrastructure, which can, as you said, that it is not a need, it's a necessity.
Yes.
Statement came. So, how to mainstream this in our master planning process or maybe regional planning process or local area planning process or zonal planning. So how we can mainstream this into our master planning processes?
See, what I think as a planner, what I think that first thing we need to understand, okay, this is very important. So I have found like that is one thing which I told you, that blue green corridor. Suppose in master plan itself we assign all the crisscrossing drainage channels and we develop green spaces along the corridor. So we can have this proximity to green also will be taken care of, because we'll have very good quality of green spaces available near to it. We need to have make it mandatory. Like at the moment, sometimes we put it as envisaged to achieve, rather than we should make it like, okay, this much of green spaces should be there. And distribution of green spaces should be according to the hierarchy, should be according to it should be well defined. Like I've shown you that Chandigarh, that it shows a very good proximity to green. It is a very good example available to us. Although sometimes as a planner, we feel that because already our urban areas are developed, so it is difficult for us to implement so much of green in already existing developed urban areas. But we can find solution, like some of the vacant land we can go for rooftop greening, we can go for some vertical gardens. Nowadays lot many solutions are available which can be utilized to improve your green. We can develop very good quality of roadside greens.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, exactly, ma'am. The vertical gardens, rooftop gardening, also in many, not only Western countries, but India also, many places it is now very, means it is there at many restaurants, hotels, etc. And also residential neighborhoods, properties also, rooftop
Yes.
and especially vertical gardens, this concept is taking. And blue-green infrastructure integration is also now coming up in a very big way. Big way. I think East Delhi Municipal Corporation also have taken certain steps to rejuvenate. They are even Bhopal, which is the city of lakes, and they are also under smart cities. Even Bangalore is taking care. Coimbatore is doing the same things about blue-green integration. And Gurgaon also recently they are working on it. They have not, I don't feel, implemented, but working on it. But these areas are working. Ma'am, there is one question. She says, I would like to thank you for. Okay, just a minute. Is it a question? Okay. Fourth year BR student, ma'am. She is a BR student.
Child's cognitive development. Okay.
Yes.
So it is, she want to, Lakshmi, the child's cognitive development is like, there is lot of literature available where they have studied through maybe questionnaire surveys and through like your sample surveys. They have studied that child, like when cognitive development, like when a child goes to green space, he is not exposed to only colors different, like any tree will have different shades of green or different colors, like even flowers will have different shades in one plant. Or even if you go to the park, your small twig to big branch, they have different textures. So all these help child's cognitive development. So it has been very well established research, especially I have seen lot many research in European countries where they have found that if a child is regularly sent to a green space and a child who is not sent to a green space, there is a huge difference or significant difference in their cognitive development.
Yes, Lakshmi, would you like to interact?
Maybe you can send a mail to me. I can forward some literature to you on this aspect.
Ma'am, also the elderly population, like, that day, one of our parliamentarians also said in his address in the Lok Sabha that the elder population, which is a very big problem in the European countries, especially all the Western European countries, the senior citizen is a very big challenge in the planning process. Like you are now speaking about the children. I think in many places like Nana Nani Park is a concept in Pune, wherein for elderly people only they are developing such kind of parks. So how important you feel those kind of parks in all over the other part of the country?
I don't feel personally. My view is like we should not segregate, but definitely, as I have told you, that every user group has a different requirement. When we were doing a survey, most of the elderly people complained that children make lot of noise. They considered that as a nuisance in the park, and that is just a perception. I'm not. I don't feel that much of segregation should be there, but that is people feel. So that's why your like people's children's play spaces can be little bit. I'm not much into the condition of I'm not as a planner. I don't feel that there should be so much of segregation because it will have impact on society also. I feel they should not be so much of segregation. It should be like they can have a different spaces within the park, like where the children are playing. There can be a one space, and there could be a place for elderly people sitting and relaxing there. But very strict segregation shouldn't be there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, Jayesh, can I ask a question? Yeah.
yes, ma'am. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for a very interesting presentation and on a very relevant topic. This is Dr. Janmejoy Gupta. I'm an associate professor in Department of Architecture, but my master's is in urban planning only from SK Delhi. Though I'm right now teaching in Department of Architecture. The thing is, ma'am, I have a question. It's using tools like GIS and everything. It's very fine that we delineate the green spaces and what the central topic of this talk was about. But in the real life situation, in most of the Indian cities, in the real scenario where promoters and the promoter politician lobby and everything is very much active, and where green spaces, though they are theoretically existing, though they are actually existing, a lot of them is taken up. Especially the fringe green spaces, not the mainstream green spaces. If the promoters and political lobbies they want to take up, of course, there's a lot of resentment. Public awareness has grown a bit, but the fringe green spaces and which also matter actually, and all those are being taken up more and more for often illegal construction, often construction which is actually violating the LUDCP guidelines, and which construction which is even violating certain zonal regulations, bylaws. So I mean, where theoretically all this is very fine as research exercises, as assessment mapping, all this, but theoretically and practically, we still find that any city, the green spaces is actually depleting fast. So what is your viewpoint on that aspect of it?
See, I agree with you that this is a problem. So, but here I would like to emphasize on this point that remote sensing provides a very powerful tool where you can monitor all these encroachment, because remote sensing data nowadays is available at very frequent, like sentinel data, 10-meter data is available at every 5 days. So that data you can easily utilize for monitoring.
So is it being done, ma'am, actually, and is it been enforced? More importantly,
People, I may not be aware, but people may be using it. Like this is the authorities they have to use. We are trying to make them aware. We are trying to make them aware that these kind of tools are available. These kind of data sets are available, and they can definitely utilize it for monitoring encroachments and other things. See, still in our urban planning, especially what I say, that professional practice of urban planning, remote sensing and GIS is still is very new. They are now started to adopt this technique. Although you might have seen in Amrit, they are GIS
Yes,
based master
ma'am, we
plan.
are. I am actually part of a team also. We are making Amrut Town Eluru master plan,
Yeah.
GIS-based master plan.
So you can understand that we are still working on developing our database, base layers. So once
Yes,
our this
exactly.
base layer, this database is done, then this monitoring of encroachment, continuous monitoring is very easy. So you can do it. This nowadays it interest that the good part is that you need not to even buy the data. That lot of data sets are available free of cost.
Yes, in Me Bhumi portal and some portals that we have
Yeah,
here in Andhra
definitely.
Pradesh
So
also.
many data portals are there, so much of data is available. So you can do this monitoring at a continuous basis. And
Okay, the only thing is that the government agencies, enforcing agencies, the government agencies, they should understand the seriousness of it and do it
this
at
issue,
itself.
yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. So someone was having a question. I think Ahad was having a question.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Please.
Good
Please.
afternoon.
Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Sorry for my voice. I have lost my voice. So, ma'am, you were talking about the green spaces being divided and in a small, in a large area, dividing the green spaces into small pockets so that everybody, uh, it is accessible to everyone. Yes.
No,
So,
yeah, please.
yeah. So, when we divide these kind of open spaces, the requirements like for example, URDPFI gives a certain amount of required land this much area should be used for what do you call it, recreational area or a open green space. So when we are dividing these stuff, sir, it doesn't meet the criteria as well as uh, we use this green spaces as also a recreational spaces. So people might not be able to play certain sports like games and other things if we are dividing this open spaces. What do you think about that, man? And just
No, they see, Jian, what I have told that
ha-
every green space is important. Small green space is also equally important, and bigger green space is also equivalent. So we cannot leave small green spaces on the cost of urban big green space, and we should not avoid big green space also. They are complementary to each other. So we have to have our design done in such a way that we provide some very small spaces at very frequent intervals, but a big green space also at maybe in some pockets of the like your development or layout. Maybe one depending upon your population size, whether it is a one big green space or two or three big green space, and then small green spaces at regular interval for daily use, and big green space for your maybe weekend and bigger use. Like you have said that you want to have a playground. See, definitely, but have you ever thought of like a child of 5 years age has a different way of playing,
Thanks.
and a child of 15 years of age has a different way of playing.
yes,
Already
They
starting.
need a different kind of environment to play. So, as a planner, we need to understand all these aspects, and we have to define our playgrounds and play spaces and parks accordingly.
yes, man. But one more thing, the land is like as a limited resource. When you are using that as a open like green spaces, like we might have to go vertical development like that was when we are going vertical, it might cause the ventilation problems like air ventilation, cooling of the land.
Yeah.
ma'am, you discussed about that kind of stuff. But what is the ratio of vertical development and the open space that we could grow? Like, how many land should be for the open space, then for the other stuff? Is there something like that?
See, that we have to definitely work on these aspects. We have to develop. See, as I am even studying the ventilation aspect also. What I have understood that ventilation is just not like you can't say that low rise will have a good ventilation and high rise will have the poor ventilation. It depends upon your different parameters, like what is your height to width ratio, what is your sky view factor, so many other factors they play a role. So we have to understand through our research studies, we have to understand that complexity of these parameters, and we need to see, we need to work definitely as a planning and research community. We need to define those guidelines. Like if you have this much of height width ratio, this much of sky view factor, you can achieve your ventilation, good ventilation. So definitely research is needed in this direction also, so that we can manage and we can balance these. See, one this conceptual solution I have given in terms of blue green corridor. See, blue spaces are highly neglected spaces, but if we develop green corridors along it, we may be using those spaces as a green, and then we'll be having a land available for our development, for our marginal population also, for developing the housing. So it is just a concept. We have to definitely work on these aspects, and we have to find out uh, different guidelines for developing our urban areas.
Okay. Ma'am, one last question. So, what is your opinion about Central Park in New York? Like, it's a big park, whereas the other area is completely like dry and well, not dry, like fully developed. There's no trees and other stuff. In other, like, what's your opinion about Central Park? Yeah.
See, definitely a big park is not bad, but it should not be at the cost of your small park. If the area has good small parks in the surroundings at regular interval, then definitely this big park is also not bad. But it shouldn't be at the cost of small parks.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. So, is there anyone who is having questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I am not able to see your name.
Yes, sir.
Please,
I'm Rachit Vijalwan.
Rachit. Yes, Rachit, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for your valuable lecture. The question that I would like to ask is, can initiatives like green investments be devised to achieve equitable urban tree canopy distribution in Indian cities such as Dehradun?
Pardon? Can you repeat your question?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, that can green investments like initiatives be advised to achieve equitable urban tree canopy distribution in Indian cities such as Dehradun?
See, in Dehradun, they had tried to develop. There is Rajpur Road. Along the Rajpur Road, they had developed one big, like open spaces with a lot of like already green were there, but they had improved the quality of green in that area. That is one initiative which has been taken. Then there are developing the central park, which is there in the heart of the city, known as the Gandhi Park. So they are developing the different kind of activities. They are developing the different kind of. They are improving the quality of green in that area. So this is what they have taken the initiative. But definitely, I would like to being in this area for so many years. I know that there is a serious lack of neighborhood green spaces in this city. Like this city has been developed, like it has been identified, it has been announced as the capital of newly formed state Uttarakhand 20 years back. And suddenly there was a spurt of development, and that went without any monitoring, without any implementation of rules, and that's why it in most of the part of the city, you have very like public green spaces are very less. Although city has rich urban green spaces, and because it has lot many institutions and still lot of green is there, but public green spaces are definitely are lacking in this city in many of the parts. So authorities, they have to take some uh, initiative in that aspect.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Is there anyone who is having any other questions they can ask? If there are no questions, then maybe we can conclude. Yes, sir.
Okay, all students are now still some of them are interested in some discussion. Then otherwise we can close it. Anyone else?
Sir,
Okay.
if anybody has any doubt, they can send me mail anytime. They
Correct.
can send me mail anytime. I'll be very happy to answer those questions.
Exactly, and that's we are all now. Though we have already started classes offline, but still the online mode is continue. No?
Yes, sir.
So we are having the lecture also today online only. So maybe we'll see that some other occasion you can come sometime here. Let us
Definitely,
see
sir.
that.
Definitely.
So anyway, I just take this great opportunity to thank you so much for your valuable time and then intellectual contribution to the students of planning. That is more important. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for inviting me. Thank you, Jayashri, also for inviting me for this lecture. It is my pleasure, like being associated with SPA Vijayawada.
So we will have more interactions. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely, sir.
Okay.
Thank you,
So,
Jayesh, and you can complete. Yeah. Okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So again, I would like to thank Gupta ma'am for her contribution to the head of department, Dr. Razak, and the director and all other staff who have directly, indirectly helped us in order to make this happen successfully. With this, I would like to conclude and again thank each one of you, especially the students and faculties who are also there, Janmay Joy sir and others. So thank you very much and thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.